Good morning, good evening, whatever time it is a blessed time, and it is always um, good to be alive. No matter what is going on, it's always good to be alive, and so I thank you for tuning in. I wanted to talk a little bit of something a little bit different, and I talked this morning, earlier today about um, judge not, and I wanted to keep that message a positive and uplifting message, and it really was a blessing. It was a blessing to me, and I hope it was a blessing to you. I am putting this on video, and I'm putting this on audio, and I want us to kind of hear because I wanted to speak my mind a little bit, and I want to say that this how do I put it there. I heard a a conservative African American professor, um, who I did not know who was as conservative and also uninformed about LGBT issues, get online and say some really, uh, I'll use the word stupid. The Bible, if you read certain versions of the Bible, it uses the word stupid, and I'm going to use it because what happens is there are what the word stupid means is it's somebody who you have facts and you choose, instead of looking and learning the facts, you choose to believe a lie. And another word that is also similar to that is bigot. A bigot is someone who chooses to ignore and refuses to learn. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, that people learn. But anyhow, he went out there and said, "Well, this is not the opinion of my university," but he gave his opinion, and then he gave um, a whole lot of bad things, and a whole lot of transphobic statements. But what I wanted to kind of talk about today, or whatever time you're tuning in, is know your power. One of the thing that there's a whole lot of, let me back up. A lot of times, people, or what I am avoiding for this time right now, is listening to like pundits on the news talk about why the Democrats lost, why this, why that, because politics is politics. But there's things that are bigger, or are are principles that transcend politics. Um, and that's, there that's political strategy, and I'm not really concerned with political strategy. Um, I believe that if you teach people, and people are taught, and not only that people are taught, but people take time to learn for themselves, that we will do better. There's an old saying. I don't even know what it's not even an old saying. It's saying that if people know better, they'll do better. And you've got to understand that there's dark forces, and there's people in this world who are controlled and follow those dark forces. Really, as I was saying, according to Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, if we're not careful, we all are people who can fall into patterns of where we can follow those dark forces, that evil. And not only that we can be evil, but there's another word, or another idea, is that we can be deceived. That our flesh, I talked about that, our flesh, our broken flesh, can deceive us. And then the word Satan. Satan means the deceiver. There are even people, um, who who will tell you that they don't believe in Satan, or they don't believe in the actual entity of Satan, that Satan is a real person. I'm not saying I don't. I don't. I'm not saying that I believe that Satan is not a real person or a real entity. But what I will say is that the reason that people say that they don't feel Satan is actually a real person, because they actually believe that Satan is just the flesh in ourselves. Now, like I said, I'm a person to tell people to think. You think about that. You pray about that. I'm not saying that I believe that, but what I'm saying is you allow the spirit within you to teach you and to tell you where to go with that. But what one of the things is that people will say, okay, well, Satan is a is maybe just a force or is not a force or a person, but it's simply the nature that we do to deceive ourselves or allow to deceive ourselves and to allow ourselves to be deceived. Um, Now, what am I saying is this, and the point of what I'm saying is know your power. One of the things about knowing your power is that we do have power, especially if you know who you are in Christ, that who you know as a person, the value of who you are as a person, and not only the value, if you take this, because I'm going to go also to a secular realm with this, if you know who you are as a person, as a powerful person made in the image of God, you know your power as a voter, you know your power as a citizen who has a constitution to protect them, a constitution that has been in power, that is one of the oldest constitutions that exists in the world. You got to understand that you have power. And one of the things that where we are at and what this election happened, why Trump is in power, and I'm just speaking the truth, is that Trump is in power because people didn't know their power. And number one, what am I saying? Why am I saying it? I'm saying this is because, and I said this before, is that what people like is people like to have superheroes. They like to have superheroes, and people are naturally lazy. What happened is Trump promised a bunch of people that if you follow me, and just listen to what he says. Listen to what he says. He says, if you follow me, I'll fix all your issues. All you got to do is vote for me. And part of the problem with, if you look at our political system that has over time has evolved, is that the office of the president has become more powerful, because what happens is people have gotten lazier in the American system. And what we do is we go and we give this person more power because we think that if we vote for this person, that this person is going to fix all our issues. And especially if you claim to be Christians, that is the remotest thing that is as remote as from what the Bible and what Jesus taught. It says that we are the hands and the feet. It doesn't say that Donald Trump and or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are our heroes. It says that we have to step up and do these things. And we have to understand the power that we have. And what happens is how that power is taken is we are deceived. Now, I'm going to go into some spaces of where people are deceived. When I was in the South, and I will be kind of transparent that me and the South have a love. I'm from the South, but I live in New York City. I live in New York City, the North, for a reason, because me and the South have a love-hate relationship. And what happens is in the South, I love the culture of the South. I love being in the South. You're going to see me post on my Facebook about eating chitlins. I love eating chitlins. I love Southern food. But one of the things is that the South is built on a system of oppressing people. And first thing what people will say is racism, but it's not just racism. I worked at a church that was a majoritarily conservative, Republican, white church. And I worked there for 6 years, and it was interesting because I learned a lot of things. And one of the things that I learned, I won't say that I learned it in college. What I'm going to say in a second, I learned it in college. But it was reinforced when I saw it actually happening. And what there is there's a powerful group of people. The rich, that's plain and simple. There's people who came to this country who were either rich or became rich, and they said, you know what? I can stay rich by going and keeping everybody else down. And one of the problems with the society, that I was saying, especially in the South, but it happens throughout the country, but the South just is so blatant with it, is that they said that they'll keep people there. A lot of people in the South will go and will say, okay, it's racism, but it's not just racism, it's classism as well. Because the first people who are also, what I learned was that when I got down to the South, they also, these people in power also taught the poor whites to vote for them and to support them. And if you look at history, like the whole point of the Civil War, the whole point of the Civil War was there were rich planters, there were rich slave-owning planters, and what they did is they told everybody else, they told all the poor whites, they told the poor whites that you'll get slaves and that you'll be rich like us if you fight for us. Now, the ones who didn't fight, they coerced, they threatened, and all of that type of stuff. Ecclesiastes said there's nothing new under the sun, so it's still happening. So, but what happened is you got an army of people. That's why, that is the truth why I have an issue with people who go out here and they're so happy about, oh, I'm from a Confederate heritage and my ancestor was a Confederate. No, what you're saying is that your ancestor was taken advantage of. And there were rich planters, farmers who owned the slaves. It was only 3%. Only 3% of people in the South owned slaves. And they convinced these other people that you could be rich, you could live on a plantation if you follow what I say, if you vote for me, and that you follow my rules. I heard Farrakhan, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, said something interesting today. And he said something, and he was being interviewed, and they were asking him about the politics of what happened, especially with this election. And he said something that was so interesting. He said, this person brought up and he said, oh, well, you know that Trump comes from a heritage of criminals. And the word I will use is snake oil salesmen. They're con artists who take advantage of people and take advantage of the people who are not as informed, or they take advantage of people who are not as strong. Since Trump's family immigrated from Europe, the Trumps have been nothing but crooks. Let's put it that way. Now, one of my things is I went to school for history. My undergrad is history and philosophy. I did history and I focused on American history because I believe that, well, there's the old saying that we've heard the saying before. If you if you don't learn history, you're bound to repeat. It's bound to repeat itself. And so when you look at the power basis and the people who are the modern day planters, those 3%, now you're here in circles call it the 1%, because really is the 1%. These 1% people who are the powerful, if you watch them, they do the same thing. They're telling you, if you follow their rules, if you listen to what I say, I am going to fix it. I am going to fix you and you're going to get a better life. And you have to, and it's interesting, and why I have an issue with kind of Southern history and the way that things sometimes are run in the South and the politics of the South, is that they have taken a group of people and they have convinced them that if we just, and I'm talking specifically, and I'm just going to point it out. This is you read the history for yourself. Don't take my word for it. You do your research. And when I say research, when I talk about history, is that's not go on the news channels. That's not watch the pundits. That is to take scholarly sources and research this. And what happens is over time, they have taken in the South, not just blacks, but poor white people, less educated white people. And I've convinced them that if you follow my rules and you do what I say, I'm going to make you rich. That also, if you look at in the Bible, it talks about the spirit of Antichrist. That's what the spirit of Antichrist does. That what it does is first we got a whole manipulated, I'm going to back up just for a second. We have a whole manipulated theology, because what we have is, if you read a lot of the theology that a lot of people these people who are taken advantage of, they have theology that teaches that they're sinners, that they're broken. And yes, we sin, but a sin is just missing the mark, to make a mistake. But what people have been taught is that they're less than, they're filthy worms. And then we have a whole literal culture of people who have been taught low self-esteem. And they've been taught low self-esteem by the manipulation of the Bible. And so what happens is, I want to go back to what I said, is that what Farrakhan was talking about, he says, oh, well, look, the guy said, well, he was in an interview, and the guy who was interviewing him said, hey, you know that, Trump was, his whole family was crooks, and they got rich by being crooks and taking advantage of people. And this is history. This is not my opinion. This is fact. This is historical fact. And then he brought up, on the Democratic side, he brought up the Kennedys. The Kennedy family got rich. And they've done many great things for this nation, but they got rich because of bootlegging. And if you ever study during the time of Prohibition, how much violence happened during Prohibition. But the point that he pointed out was that he said that the issue was because they were from that rich and powerful class of people, even when them as white, powerful people, they did wrong, they broke the law, but then they went and they were able, even though they broke the law, to keep their wealth. When you look at Donald Trump, his family took advantage. What I said again, they're old snake oil salesmen who lie, cheat, and steal. What does Satan do? He lied, cheat, and steal. Read this history. And so what happened is that, however, with the way the system works, those type of people were able to keep profits. Just listen to what we have been convinced. And this is what I'm talking about. Know your power. And understand that you have to, I'm going to point out how you know your power is to learn. Is to learn and not allow people to lie to you. To question what is being told to you and listen and not, and when I say question, do research. Don't let nobody lie to you. And number two, don't allow just some emotions or some temporary feeling or you feel that, oh my goodness, Biden didn't do something right, Kamala Harris didn't do something right, so we're just going to flip-flop and follow our emotions. What he was saying was that we've got to understand that these people are rich because they wrote the rules. Listen, and the rules don't apply to them. Listen to what I'm saying. You got a man who has convicted of 34 felonies. It doesn't matter whether you feel it's right or not. There are people who are sitting in jail now who, not just that the laws that they're under were unjust, but they're actually innocent people. They actually did no crime, but they're in jail now. This man absolutely did crimes. He absolutely did crimes. And that he convinced people who, if they did one of those felonies, would spend the rest of their lives in jail or a significant part of the jail, that the significant parts of their lives in jail, that he convinced those people that they follow him, that they go out here and they follow him. And number two, one of the stupid things, I said stupid is when you see something you're supposed to learn and you choose not to learn. Trump went in, was the most unpopular president since the Great Depression, and the people voted him back in. And the third stupid thing that was stupid is that you got the richest man in the world, and I'm going to talk a second, how did the richest man, Elon Musk, get rich? And you got Donald Trump. They got together and they convinced people that if you follow him, well, let me back up. They convince people that billionaires, that these two billionaires that they actually care about you, and they're gonna fix their issue. That they're gonna fix your issues. He got two millionaires and billionaires to say that he was going to cut wasteful spending from the government. One of those is a government contractor. Make it make sense how people, what I'm saying is this. What I'm trying to say is this. First of all, make it make sense how people who are poor, who are working every day, are going to go to a felon who is getting away with felony, who has been found liable of rape, who, if they did the same thing, would go to jail and would spend the rest of their lives in jail, but they would follow a man who would do that, a snake oil salesman who would do that. And what it is that what happens is we have listened to a lie, and that people have started listening to lies. That's what Satan does. You listen to a lie, and then you go out there and you make a stupid decision based on the lie. If you just stop, forget what I say about anything. Forget all of the racism, the misogyny, the transphobia, the violence, all of those terms. You think about that for a second. That Elon Musk, through all of these billionaire families who gave $1.9 billion to Trump's campaign, all of these people who are raising their prices on your stuff that you're paying for, that have told you, Kroger admitted, look it up, Kroger admitted that it's not inflation that made the bills go up, that made the food bills go up. They said that they went up on it to make more profit. That these families, Walmart and all of these families are going, they went and they said, you know what? We want to get rich. That you're asking, do these people really care about you? And what has happened is that we have been lulled in a place of where we don't use our voice, is because we've been lied to and we've been kept down. And let me give you another example. The areas with the largest Black populations are also the places. They're the South. It's again the South. The South has the largest Black population, but if you look, it's still the most conservative part of the country with the most anti-Black laws. You got places that got stand your ground laws, which are discriminatory. Why? Because these people, our African American people, have been told that we're less than, and that we don't have power, so we don't vote, and we let these people run over us. If every Black person in the South got up and voted, the South, at least one thing that we would find out is that Black people would be poor in the South. But Black people have, there is historic poverty. There's systemic poverty. If you go and you look at the poor white poverty, Dr. Bishop William Barber has written a book that y'all need to read about the power and the place of white poverty. It's that there are people who have convinced these people to believe a lie, and that they believe this lie, and that they give up their power. We believe a lie and we give up their power. And what happens that has surprised me, this is why I've been surprised this nation, is that I've been surprised in this nation about the election, and I have been surprised in the sense of that sometimes I thought that the human condition was getting better, and it's just not. Because you've got the most unpopular president elected you got the most unpopular president that was ever elected. You got him to get enough money together to convince people to get him back in office. At the end of the day, it wasn't this. This wasn't this a land. When Biden won, he won by a landslide. He won by close to 8 million votes. 8 million votes. Trump won by 3 million votes. So it wasn't a landslide. It was 3.5 million votes versus he lost by 7 million. And so one of the things I want to point out too is those same people who voted him out voted him back in. This is the problem with the human condition. We have been convinced by a lie to vote for somebody who we knew failed us. Who knew failed us? We don't give our own selves a second chance when we fail because we have low self-esteem, but then we'll give Donald Trump, whose entire family, whose entire history, we can look we can read decades of Donald Trump taking advantage of people, taking advantage of the poor, taking advantage of black people, taking advantage of minorities, taking advantage of Hispanics, and people went out and voted for him again. And that really scares me about the human condition. And the human condition is that we can be lied to and that we're told that we can do something or that if we do this, then it'll work. And when I say do this, what it is to put faith in a system that is not based in the power of our own voice and the power that God has given us. That's what I'm saying. We're looking for a system to help us. We're looking for the government to help us. We're looking for the goodwill of people. We're looking for the goodwill of rich people to save us. But we have got to know the power. And what has happened this election is that people took the little power that they had and they gave it away. And this happened before. That's the whole point of the Civil War. The whole point of the Civil War was that people had power and they gave it away to the rich. Now think about this for a second. I want to point out this, talking about power and talking about systems and things of this nature. And I want you to take what I'm saying. I want you to think about it. And I want you to respond in power. Think about it. Do your research and respond in power. The system, you got to understand that the world is not a good place and people are made to take advantage of you. And people are out here to take advantage of you. We're told to pay our taxes. We're told as citizens to pay our taxes. This is to follow the rules. And if you don't pay your taxes, you get put in jail. But what happens is you've got rich people who we elected Donald Trump. And the first thing he did is he lowered taxes that were already low on corporations that are rich. And if you also study, these same corporations are feeding us stuff that's dangerous. Other countries, do research. Do research on the food that you eat. Take the food that you eat in America, take the food that you eat in Canada or Europe, and see the ingredients that we could have in America in our foods, and then look what other countries. You can't put that mess in food in other countries. It's a law. So what happens is we as Americans have been convinced that these people actually care about us. And that if not only that they care about us, that they care about us and are going to fix our problems. And so what happens is we give up our voice, we give up our power, and then we say, well, this person will fix us, and then they screw us up and they screw us over. So you got a president who went in. First of all, let's talk about trickle-down economics. What trickle-down economics is, it started with Reagan, is it said that if you give to the rich, which are who have taken advantage of us already, that they're going to trickle down the economic wealth of them, and that's going to help us. Now, we learned that with Reagan. And then Trump got into office. He went and cut taxes again. And what happened? On the rich, that is. And so what happened? The economy got bad. He blamed it. The inflation went overboard. And what happens is he blamed it on Biden, and then people didn't do their research. And what happened? They go out and vote him back in. And what the difficult thing that I'm wrapping up with this is that what you have to understand the power that you have is that you are being lied to. What am I saying that you're being lied to? Do your research. You're being lied to. You're told, and I'm not telling you not to pay your taxes, but what I'm telling you is that what you need to do is to do the right thing, is to advocate for a tax system that is equitable. And we're not advocating for a tax system that's equitable because we elected a man who is a proven crook, who is a proven crook, who went and all he did was lower taxes for the richest people. It didn't help our economy. This is a fact. This is a fact. Even the financial organizations such as Goldman Sachs, who and all of the companies, Standard and Poor, these are companies that rate our government and actually run the economy for the actual government, said that this man is gonna screw up our economy. They said this, and so what happens is we gave up our power. And one of the things I'm going to wrap up with this is I'm going to say this is that number one, we say play by the rules. Yes, we do need to play by the rules, but we need to understand that the rules, and I didn't understand. I understood this, but I didn't understand it and feel it until I saw Trump get back into office. Is that we say follow the rules, but the rules are made by the rich and powerful. And what happens is, I heard it was Garrison Keillor who said this. He says, we have the power. We talk about the rich and the powerful, but they only make up 1%. They only make up 1%. We are the 99%. If we vote, if we say that we want power, if we want to say that we want an equitable system, if we want to say that we don't want to have racism control our country, we just give our voice. But what has happened is we have been lulled, we have been lied to, and lulled into a sense of that we will go and have people who are crooks tell us that they'll fix our problems, and they have never fixed our problems. We've got to look at, if you look, inequity in America is worse than it's ever been in history of America. And the other country, listen to this now, the other country that has the worst inequity in the world is South Africa. And so what do? We listen to somebody who spent $119 million at the last part of the election to push it over the edge, Elon Musk. Where did Elon Musk come from? South Africa. Again, Elon Musk is a snake oil salesman. He's a crook. His family went, they took advantage of black Africans. They threw black Africans off of their land, got a mine, and they took advantage. When he came over here, Elon Musk, the way Elon Musk gets rich is he takes over companies that have a good business model, and then he takes over those companies, and he goes and takes credit for it. Look this up. Look it up. SpaceX. People said that he created SpaceX. He didn't create SpaceX. There were two other gentlemen who created SpaceX. Tesla and SpaceX. If you look it up with Tesla, these guys actually sued Elon Musk because he did a corporate takeover and he pushed him out, but they sued him so that the company had to be required to say that they were the founders, because Elon Musk kept on saying he was a founder. He's a crook. You got these two crooks running the nation. And that you've got people who are sitting in churches, especially in the South, sitting around saying that these crooks were put in power by God. That this was God's plan. And let me tell you, there's oftentimes, if you truly read the Bible, what happens is God told the people, let's give an example. He told the people in the Bible, in the Old Testament, he said to the Jews, he said, I am your king. You don't need another king. I'm your king. And what did they say? No, they wanted a king. And he said, he went down the list. He said, all of these bad things are going to happen if you elect a king. You're going to have to do all these things. You've got to be a servant to the king, and all these bad things are going to happen. And so what happened? They said they still wanted a king. And so what happened? God gave them a king. That's where we're at. It's 3,000 years later, 3,400 years later, and we're still doing the same thing. and we're still being lied to. And we're still being and what we're being lied to is that, number one, to well, let me just go for what I'm trying to say here, and sum it up. Number one, know your power. Know your power. Number two, understand that when you lose power, it is because you have been lied to, and that you have been told a lie, and that you've given up that power. You have given up that power. If you don't have power, it is because there has been a system that has been in effect for hundreds of years. Racism, classism, those are the systems that work in our country. Sexism. You had women, misogyny, women who voted for a man who is sexist. And what happened is we've lost our power because we've given our power to these people, and we believe what lie? If you follow their system, this is a lie. You follow their system, it's going to work out. And it's never worked out, and it's not going to get better. When we follow that system, what it is that we've got to know our power. We've got to know what is the right thing. We've got to research, know what is the right thing to do, and then advocate and do the right thing. And what I'm saying is that when we as a nation elected Donald Trump, we didn't do our research. We gave up our voice to crooks. We gave up our voice, and we're gonna reap the consequences of that as a nation. We gave up our voices to crooks, powerful crooks. They're powerful. Why do I say they're powerful? Because there are people who can convince enough people to give up power and to trust them to fix all their problems. Number three, and that's what I'm saying, and I've said this also with the latter rains, is that we have got to get busy. We've got to advocate, and we've got to get busy and say, you know what? It is not Donald Trump's responsibility, Kamala Harris's responsibility. It is my responsibility to advocate for what is right. It is, and I heard. I'm gonna wrap up with this. I don't want to. I'm throwing out a lot of stuff, but I heard another preacher say this. He says the problem with this election is this. I talked about earlier being deception, the human condition. Part of the human condition is that people get deceived. And he said that and this preacher said this, Christian Smith, he said the problem is we cannot advocate for other people because we have low self-esteem. We believe poor theology that makes us valueless, that teaches us that God thinks of us as filthy rags, not as made in his image, because that's what the Bible says, we're made in God's image. But we don't act on that. We don't believe, we don't reinforce that. And then when we look at other people, we treat them like crap because we think of ourselves as crap. And what we do, and when I say that we think of ourselves as crap, is because we don't think of ourselves as having power. We look at somebody else and say, no, I can't fix the world. Donald Trump can fix the world. And so we go and believe a liar, and we put a liar in office. And what again I said about that point I was making was that it said that we can't advocate for other people because we don't advocate for ourselves. And we don't advocate for ourselves because we don't feel that we have value, and we don't feel that we don't have power. I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. Do your research. Do your research in the Word of God. Do your research in this world out here. Look at these systems. Look at how these systems work. Look at how a system works. That's what Farrakhan was talking about doing this thing. That people who are crooks can keep their money, can stay in power, and then we go vote them back in. They can keep the power when you got black people who did the same thing. And what happened? They didn't pass that wealth on. But you look at Trump, he's passing wealth of taking advantage of people. He's passing that wealth on to his family, to his children. What are you doing? You know what you can pass on to your children? You can pass on knowledge, teaching your children how to learn, teaching your children how not to be deceived by people. You can go out here and know the power, know who you are in Christ, know that you're created in the image of God, and know that you need to get up. There are things that we need to do, and the last thing is that we have to treat our brothers. We have to treat ourselves right, and we have to treat our brothers and sisters and non-binary siblings right. Why do we do that? Or why do we do that? Because we believe in the value of who we are. And we do that by teaching people who have power. And the biggest thing that I had an issue with is that he and the people like Trump were so, they don't normally deceive certain groups of people. I'm going to tell you, there are poor, depressed communities who have systematic poverty and who have been poor, have generational poverty. Those people are going to be deceived for a very long time. And the problem with this nation is that we were deceived to vote against our own interests. That these people, we know he's failed us. We know the programs have failed us. It's not somebody who we don't know. We know, but we still voted for him. We still voted for him. And it's that we've been lulled into this system of believing lies. The lie is that rich and powerful and that somebody else is going to fix your problem. We need to know who we are in God and be the hands and feet of God and fix our problems little by little. And people say, well, we don't have power. But we're the 99%. If everyone got up and said, you know what, Trump? We don't want sexism. We don't want racism. And let's be realistic, because there are people who are depressed. There's a 20, like people said, there's a 1/3. There's a 1/3 who is always going to vote for the wrong thing, who are always going to support the wrong thing, who are always going to believe the negative lie about themselves. But what's happened is that good people, have either not been informed, who have allowed themselves to not be informed, and to be lied to, or they stood there and did nothing. There's a lot of people who didn't even vote. That's really what got Trump in. And that was what happened the first time. People didn't vote. Know who you are in God. Know your power. Understand you're saying play by the rules, but you can change the rules. What am I saying the rules are? The rules are that the rich have made and that the powerful have made is that a felon, while there are millions of people who don't have his power, who are sitting in jail, and we can get a felon and a crook, a felon and his crook friend from South Africa can run this country when there's millions of people in jail who did a fraction of what he did. Listen to that. Think about that. So what I want you to do is I want you to do your research on the conditions and things are, and I want you to use your power to advocate for what is right. Advocate for your value. Advocate for what is right. You may not think people are listening, but if everybody speaks up and does the right thing, and first thing, learns who they are, knows their power, and understands and learns, does study, does research, and understands the way things work, the way things get a little bit of intelligence. Don't believe everything that comes on TV. When you see something on TV, go and find a scholarly source and then research it. And the world will change. The world will change. And even if when I say the world, I mean the sphere of influence. It may not change everything in a big thing, but it'll change the world around you in your circle. It'll change the world in your area. And eventually it will change the world. But what God has called you to do is to change the area around you. And you're not going to do that by believing lies. And you can't expect a politician, a preacher, or your parents or anybody else to change it. It's in your hands. Thank you. And I hope you hear this and I hope you share it. Give me some feedback on what I talked about today. Be blessed.